To begin with, what I wanted to really gain an understanding of where you are coming from, a little kind of an introduction about yourself, which will give me a little bit of, where do I start? What would be my level of, imparting this workshop? Okay. So anybody, if you can quickly just, give me your introduction in terms of your education experience. If you have any past experience in this competency mapping, or you've been doing work in this area, and specifically, what is the intent? What is the motive driving you to attend this workshop? Ask yourself, what is the motive? What is the purpose? What is that you really want to take away from this besides the certification? Okay. Anybody?
So
am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah,
good
yeah,
afternoon, Nirmala, and good afternoon, everybody. If there's no other volunteer, then I would like to go first.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon once again. My name is Gopa Ghosh. Bong, basically. But then born in Jalandhar and then brought up in the rest of the country because my dad was an army officer. So I've had an exposure of the cosmopolitan culture. Currently, as far as my education is concerned, I'm an honors graduate in zoology. So from zoology, I took a drastic shift to, take some learnings about management. So, and I did my management MBA from Institute of Modern Management, and then Vishwa Bharati University. And then I started my professional life. So over 20 years of experience under my belt in varied scenarios. I started with a consulting firm, then moved on to the companies like Hindustan Lever, ICICI Bank, then telecom industry. I spent about good 6-7 years in Reliance and Tata. And right now, I'm working currently as a general manager, HR, learning and development in Poonawalla FinCorp Limited. This actually was Magma FinCorp Limited just a month back. We have full-fledged transited into the new identity as Adar Poonawalla. You all may knowing about Serum Institute's head. He has taken over Magma FinCorp. So I'm part of that organization. And my motive, and I would like to gain a lot of your inputs also, insights also from Nirmala and of course all the esteemed members here. I have been training. We have been talking about functional skills. We have been talking about behavioral skills, all of that. But I want to get on to the next level where I really want to do something very good, kind of a program interventions, which are basically competence-based. That's the reason I really want to know more about the subject, because I think I'm at a very, very base level of understanding of competency, the mapping and the assessment centers, whatever we talk about. Hearsay, I've heard a lot about it, but if I have really applied it, no, nothing as such. So my main objective to join this team here is to learn from all of you, and of course the esteemed faculty, that how can I use the concept of competence mapping in training, in learning and development, and the talent management. That's the objective. I hope the introduction is not too long.
Great. I welcome you to this program, Gopa. It's great to have you. And definitely, I think we would definitely talk about, how competencies can be integrated with various HR functions, and especially with reference to how is it going to be really of a great value, especially with learning and development, as your area is, or talent development, as I say. So we'll be talking about it. And once again, I welcome you to this program. Yeah.
So, good afternoon to all the participants, and good afternoon, Madam Garg. This is Dhrubajyoti Majumdar. Actually, I am also a born, brought up, career, everything is in Calcutta. So no outside exposure is there, but I am almost having a 2 decades of experience, and I started completing. I am a basically economics honors graduate. Thereafter, I shifted towards management and completed the MBA from the same institute of the GOPA, Institute of Modern Management, and started my career in the year of 1998. And thereafter, I worked in various companies, namely in FMCG and logistics. I joined Larsen and Toubro Limited in 2008 as a cluster HR officer, and still continuing with the company, and presently designated as regional head of HR of Eastern region. I am also completed the executive human resource from IIM Calcutta. I'm also a certified Harrison debriefer and coach. And since this particular program, I was intended to complete a couple of years back, but somehow or other it has not been materialized. But finally, this desire is also completed, because as rightly pointed out by Gopa, my previous participant, my role actually is basically an HR generalist role, and the compliance HR is much more part. But subsequently, we are being also given certain task force in which I am also the member, and some of the task force I am also leading, which is basically dealing with the functional competency mapping of the various positions, particularly those who are the head of the projects, or maybe the in charge of the planning, because we are a project-based organization. All the construction division, we are basically Larsen and Toubro construction division I am handling. So a lot of functional competency mapping, this task force is going on. So I want to learn a lot from this particular aspect of competency mapping, because only bookish knowledge or only the direct exposure is not sufficient. In order to bridge the gap, I need certain amount of hand-holding, for which I have joined this particular course. Thanks a lot.
Great, Majumdar. Thank you so much. It was an excellent introduction. And I think you're so high on the learning aspect. I'm really excited now. Huh? After Gopa and Majumdar, that I can literally see already here observable excitement in all of you. All right, great. Welcome once again.
Thanks.
Yeah. Please, Manisha, you want to, or Minal?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Little louder, because I was having a little, I don't know whether everybody can hear, because Majumdar's voice, I was not able to hear so well. I don't know if everybody had that. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
So I'm Meenal Vargas, and I'm an HR professional, and with around 15 years of experience. So I have worked mostly for organizations in the pharma sector. Started off with a clinical research organization called Quintiles, and then moved on to Novartis, and then with Abbott Healthcare. So my stint has mostly been around pharma. Currently, I work as a HR consultant and a L&D professional. So all throughout my stint, I was working in the L&D sector, the learning and development area. And in terms of developing modules, giving training, so this is something which I always did. But competency mapping was one area which, even though I had the knowledge, but actually couldn't deep dive into these concepts to understand it, in a more detailed way. So as a trainer, I used to do behavior-based interviewing programs for my leadership teams. So what happened is, there was one organization where I realized that, they wanted me to do this program. I did for them. And then eventually I figured out that these guys don't have competencies, so even if they're going to do a behavior-based interviewing or competency-based interviewing, they did not have competencies for their people, for their organization. So that's where I started studying a little more on competencies and helped them, because I was instrumental in setting up their performance management system. I could help them to come up with their competencies, their functional competencies, and help them to do interviews based on that. So, but somewhere deep down, I always knew that I need to gain a little more in-depth understanding on this entire concept. Identifying competencies, creating descriptors are good, but how do you actually work out a framework for competencies? How does it begin with? Just like in performance management system, we begin with the top, right? So how does this entire framework emerge? Is what I was really keen to study and know more. As far as my education background is concerned, I'm an MBA in HR. I'm also certified MBTI professional, and also post-graduation. I've also done my post-graduation just last year. I completed doing my post-graduation diploma in counseling. That's 1 full year of lot of studies with psychology. Not that I'm a psychology student, an HR student, but deep down as an L&D professional, I always felt that if I would not know, when we develop modules, it's all behavior based, so if you do psychology, it helps you a lot to understand the actual foundation on which all our training programs are based on, so that's how I did a little more on this area. Yeah.
Great, Minal, and wonderful having you. And especially in COVID times, I guess people like you are really in great demand, because people are actually going through a lot of mental stress, having to stay indoors or no space for themselves. So they need a lot of counseling. So I guess it's a great opportunity to counsel people, understand people, and raise their bar. Wonderful having you here. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Manisha.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely looking at you and meeting you. So I have around 13 years of experience, and I am an OD professional. I would say OD practitioner, because still I believe that I've just touched base when it comes to change management and OD practices. I have completed my MBA, and I have also done my professional diploma from this Tata Institute of Social Science. And I work primarily with manufacturing sector and service sector. Now, competency mapping, why did I join this course and what I'm intent to do? So I have worked bits and pieces when it comes to competency mapping, because when it comes to talent management or learning and development or business impact, somewhere I have worked, but still, if somebody asks me, can you explain me? Do I have that conviction where I can tell people that, yeah, I know everything about competency mapping, and if I know whether organization is ready to, the level whether the competency mapping should be there or should not be there, the readiness of the organization, how do I assess whether we should launch competency mapping framework here, and if we should launch, at what level, whether we should go only with a functional one. A lot of questions, and a lot of understanding that when is the right time and how is the perfect way to implement and execute. So this is what I'm looking forward to learn after this program. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful having you here. And I see that most of you have some kind of insight, experience, and of course, some kind of a, myths or a mystic surrounded around competency mapping. And I think over all these sessions, hopefully we will ensure that you are very clear about the entire process, how to go about, and how you can actually implement implement this entire competency mapping. All right. Okay. Anybody else?
Hi, Nirmala. Vanessa
Hi.
here.
I can't see you, but anyway, where are you?
My
Others
video
can see
is
her?
on.
Others can see her?
Yeah, we can
Yes,
see
yes,
her.
we can see her.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Okay.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Vanessa Monserrat. I have been an L&D professional since the last 10 years after completing my MBA in HR, and worked with organizations like Larsen and Toubro Infotech, then moved on to Shopperstop, and now I'm with Atos Syntel. And my entire journey has been in the learning and development field itself. So I've done everything, right from training programs to facilitation to coaching, mentoring, etc. And I have also worked on a couple of other projects related to competency mapping and competency framework, however, with very little experience on what it exactly is. So I think that is one of the main reasons why I am part of this session today, so that I understand what is the background of competency framework and now how I can use it better and more effectively at work and in my projects. Also, I am a certified professional NLP practitioner and a transaction analysis expert. And apart from that, I have done all your designing and development kind of work in terms of training programs. So that's about my experience.
Great, Vanessa. You share the TA, and somebody said MBTI. Though I'm aware of NLP, but I'm not a certified NLP practitioner. It's lovely to have so many learning and development specialists in this group. So we will have really very healthy, interesting discussions around them. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thanks, Nirmala.
Archie or anybody else?
Sure, I can go next. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are very much audible now.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nirmala. Pleased to be part of this group. I am an OD practitioner. I would say not exactly a practitioner, but yeah, an OD professional with a core around about 11 years experience in different facets of talent management, where L&D has been co-part of my whole experience, performance management, competency assessment programs, leadership development programs, learning journey. So all throughout, different facets of OD that you can think of. I'm a certified trainer from NABID, SQA, image consultant, a postgraduate in HR and marketing, an engineer by qualification only. Don't practice that at all. I just completed off lately my OD practitioner certification from TIS in partnership with OD Alternatives. So the whole reason behind joining this particular curriculum was, as many of us in the group have already mentioned, I've worked in parts and pieces around the competency frameworks, mostly around where it is already established, or probably, the learnings from, or probably the implementation of the framework needs to be done in the organization. So the intent was to actually start understanding, designing the whole competency framework from scratch, and then how you can actually marry it together with the organizational development initiative that you do around in the organization. So how do you marry all the facets of talent management program all together? That's the main intent. And it's like it binds up like a whole picture all together. So one, it's like a puzzle, it one fits into the other one. So that's the whole essence behind it. How do you do the actual implementation?
Absolutely. Great having you, Prachi, and interesting that, again, another person who's also into L&D and talent development and more OD. So, in fact, in these sessions, we would be talking in detail about how do you design a competency framework. Then, having done that and having created a database of competencies for all your jobs, role and function and team, and creating all the competency dictionaries, etc. Then how do you actually use them, integrating this into the various HR functions? And especially when you talked about OD, so how do you do that? How do you actually then look at cost-effective, training programs? So therefore, we will look at typically, what is a threshold, what is differentiating, what is rare, and what is really critical. How do you really integrate the entire thing? What are those key elements you really need to look at? So the design part, how to design the entire process, and then what are some challenges which you will confront when you are implementing it? What is that you really need to look at? And then the outcomes. Okay. And
So, Nirmala,
this
I have a question.
session is mostly not going to be, I'll be talking a little about the methodology once I really get all the introductions. Okay. All right. Yeah. Once again, welcome, Prachi. Yeah. Can we have the other person?
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Pritha Bandyopadhyay. I'll go next. Preeta, please continue. Yeah.
Yeah, so presently I'm working with Himadri Specialty Chemical Limited as Senior Manager HR. I have total 14 years of experience, and before that I was associated with Dunlop India Limited, the tire manufacturing company. So overall, my career I was basically associated with manufacturing industry only. Regarding my education, I completed my MBA from FMS and my post-graduation diploma in personal management from Bhavans. And I did one certification course from XLRI Jamshedpur on PMP, personal management studies. So last year I was associated with Mercer for restructuring, organization restructuring. So this year we have planned to implement the competency assessment framework and along with the assessment center and development center. So that's why I learned to something on this subject.
Okay,
Thank
great, Preeta. So you want to understand and have an overview so that you are able to participate whenever this intervention is happening by the consultant, so that you understand and you are all.
Right.
No, you can also add value, because most of the times when consultants come, they actually do things and you feel like a black box. What have they done and what is it?
Exactly.
Okay, at least you are able to also validate, hey, have they done, otherwise are they giving you return for the investment you have done, right? Great.
Thank you so much.
Great, Preeta, having you here. Yeah.
I'll go next. This is Renuka. I'm born and brought up in Mumbai. I've completed my graduation from bachelor's from management studies. Then I have done 1 year diploma in HR. I started my career with recruitment with the service industry, and then moved into manufacturing from last 6 years. I've been playing a role of journalist. HR. I've been dealing into various aspects of HR. Now, our company is a family-owned, closely held, limited company, which is planning a rapid expansion in the coming 5 years. So, while we were thinking of restructuring systems and processes,
just 1 second,
thought,
Renuka, if I can interrupt. What does Derive Chemfabe do?
It is into chemical manufacturing, which provides a raw material. I mean, the product goes as a raw material to the pharma industry. Yeah. So we are, while we were thinking of restructuring systems and processes, we thought performance appraisals was one of the things where we thought, competency mapping would help us. So our director thought, we should have a team who can, learn from this program, and we can start doing brainstorming with each other and, come up with the idea how do we, implement it to support the growth that we are planning in the coming 5 years. So that is why my motive is this, that I want to learn the system. How do we, develop a system where it will be sustainable and a system-oriented approach where people will also gain and the company can also gain from the learning that I'm going to get in this program.
Okay, great. So I welcome you to this program, and you have actually 2 others also from the same company, right? Okay, great. So as a team,
yes,
you really
but they could not join today, but I'm sure they'll see the recorded session.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Wonderful having you here. Yeah, I guess. So anybody else who is left out? Most of you are over. Anybody?
Hi, this is Arijit. Am I audible?
Arijit. Yes, Arijit. Yes. You are absolutely audible. Arijit.
Hi. Yeah. Good afternoon to all. Speaking of myself, I was a practicing HR professional since 2009 to 2019. Thereafter, I resigned from my last organization to West Bengal Power Development Corporation. Presently, I have taken a break from regular HR practice. I'm pursuing my LLB and I'll be completing it this year. What kept me motivated for this course is I plan to get back to the HR professions once I complete my LLB. But to speak of it, it's been always a conflicting issue. Like for me, designing a competency assessment framework and having a dynamic assessment center is kind of a strategic and well-planned initiative on part of the management, which generally I beg to differ is not actually taken care of in real sense. What happens is, as per my experience, we are generally having a predefined set structure which we generally adhere to or just comply with for our performance appraisals annually, or maybe we have the change in the framework once whenever there is a professional organization who is engaged for us to redo it. I mean, say after the span of say 5 years or maybe after a certain period of time. That is where I want to have an understanding as to how to implement the competency assessment framework, because otherwise it's not possible at the functional level. It has to have an orientation from the strategic point of view and should generally be focused from the topmost hierarchy. And additionally, one part of it, like I was looking into recruitment for the state PSU, wherein generally the recruitments which happen are kind of rigid in their sense. We have our competitive examinations happening there, why we follow it with a round of group discussion, which works as an elimination round, and then followed by a generic personal interview process. Now, over there, I wanted to do something on the structured interview, something related to structured interviews. And yes, but I was not able to implement it because of kind of a rigid framework which we had. So that is where I want to build on. Since I want to have an understanding and also implement it for my future career aspects.
Great, Arjit. I think a great intent, because I think in most of the organizations, having been in this domain for almost more than 35 years, I've seen that most of the organizations speak of, saying that we've done competency management, we are doing competency mapping, etc. But when it comes to recruitment, they hardly use them. In fact, I've seen they form the process of entire recruitment. They do not standardize, and it still has those traditional approaches. In fact, we would be definitely be talking about how competencies can be used in recruitment and selection in order to make the entire process standardized, and also a high reliability in terms of predicting the right match, because ultimately that's what matters. So how do you predict the new hire's performance even before the person is onboarded? Is there a criteria? How do you do it? So the best way is to do a competency based interview. And what is it? How does it go about? What do you need to do? So we will be talking about those things. Okay. Wonderful, and welcome to this program, Arjit, once again. Great having you here. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Archana, you have to. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Archana Kashelkar this side. I am also from Mumbai. Post MBA, I have around 10 years of experience. So mainly spanning from operations to generalist to recruitment to HR business partner. As an HR business partner, I always knew that it is imperative, to understand competency framework, but I have never really got an opportunity to actually, make the framework. And now I'm associated with a consulting firm, and I take care of two of my clients who are into BFSI sector. So I'm in the near future, I'm looking forward to sort of have those competencies ready and the framework ready, and design them myself, so that I would be able to sort of understand and make my clients.
Little louder, Archana.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now better.
Yeah. Okay. So I said I am handling two of my clients who are into BFSI at the moment. I'm handling their HR needs. So I need to understand the intricacies of the entire competency framework and design it myself to be sort of implemented at my client, and then later on whichever company organization that I work with. At the moment, I had not got an opportunity to work in the framework, competency framework or a development part, but looking forward to implement in the near future. So, which is why I am here. Yeah, and I'm very happy to see you all and learn from you all. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful, Archana, to have you. And once I think again, a lot of L&D and lot of consulting. So really great to have all of you. So with that, we complete all the introductions, I'm sure.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, Devinder. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, Devinder. Yeah.
Very much happy to see all the celebrities and sharing all what is needed. So I did not go in depth. So what is to be the outcome of this program, but very much excited to see all of you, and let's get together. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Devinder. And yeah, I'm assuming that you have almost the same kind of expectations as I mean stated by other participants, right?
Yeah, ma'am. All have shared that.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. So, guys, with that, I think wonderful introductions, and I'm sure I have covered everybody. So once again, welcome to this excellent and exciting program. Yeah, considering that this is the first session, yeah, it was very important for me to kind of understand so that I can set the context, to understand your expectations so that I could actually set my kind of, level of sharing my knowledge, experience, the entire program, so that it doesn't really bounce, or it's really well below your expectations. Okay, once again, thank you, guys. Yeah. The way I want to give you a little background in terms of how are we going to go about, and then I will definitely give you an overview of the entire program, what we are going to do, and what is that we are going to do today. The methodology primarily would be because most of you, barring one or two, are at the entry level or students, but most of you are tenured professionals. All right. So going by that and going by your learning style, what we would do is not merely just imparting just the concept or a theory, because that you could actually Merit has already sent you copious amount of information in terms of what is it, how is it, everything she has sent. So this the methodology I would actually follow is giving you the concept a little, but most importantly, to work on something, on a kind of a project or an exercise, so that you are able to reinforce your learning. Also, the challenge, say for example, if I were to say, hey, identify in these set of statements which are your values, which are your traits, which are your motives, then you begin to understand. First of all, you'll say, hey, what is the definition? So then, is this a motive or is this a trait? So I will actually challenge your gray matter, so that you are able to learn faster, and also you are able to remember things. All right. And we will actually go through this process in all the sessions, so that you are able to reinforce your learning, and also small projects which you will need to do week on week, so that you are very clear about what you have done in the earlier session. Okay. And if there are any doubts, you can always again then text, etc., so that in the following session then we can take up those doubts for clarification. Is that fine with you all, guys? This kind of a methodology? All right. So essentially what we would be doing is the objectives of the program, just to give you a quick run through, is understanding the competencies, understanding the entire competency based management system. Yeah, how is it integrated with the HR functions, and then how do you actually do this competency development and mapping process in organizations? How do you conduct behavioral event interviews? Or I'm sure all of you must have heard of bars, but how do you actually do that? How do you start working on these behavioral anchor rating scales? What are those proficiency levels? What are these competency clusters? How do you run and design and run an assessment centers, development centers? So the entire, we will actually, the objective will be to define a competency, go through the entire competency frameworks, competency models, competency dictionaries, designing assessment centers, integrating with the HR, and then, completing the entire circle. Okay, so that would be a kind of a giving a full understanding of competency management. All right. Now, having said that, what are we going to do in this session? So in this session, which is say, say about 2.5 hours now. So we are going to talk about, when we say competency mapping or competency management. First of all, I'm sure all of you understand, but at least we need to start with, hey, the basic unit, which is called competency. Are you understanding the same way? What is a competency? Okay, then why are these competencies required in an organization? Why is every organization making this big, loud noise about competencies? What are they? Are they really important? Then, having said that, how are they clustered? Because you need to understand, after, how are the classifications of competencies done? Most of you know about it, but typically how was it? And then we are talking about, the typical iceberg model, which is really basic when we talk about a competency. And then we will also talk about how are we going to measure competencies, right? And what is a competency dictionary? How are we typically, what is the design? What is the process of going about, what is it? And how do we go about creating a competency dictionary? Okay, so you'll also have a lot of exercises. The most important thing is here for your learning, because all of you come from with the experience of having worked in organizations. I will actually expect all of you to take up, whatever concept we do, go back and then pull out from your organization, whether it's a role or whether it's a function, and start working on that, so that you are able to then comprehend what I have done. Okay? Okay, guys? All right. So, after the introductions, this is typical of any Zoom session. Everybody is now gone off into a video off. And, okay, please, I want to, audio to be muted, but have your videos on, all right? Because I'm going to ask you some, being a devil's advocate, I'm going to ask you a question saying that, hey, why is this, why do I want to understand why competency is important. Before even we say what, why organizations wanting to know why have competency? Somebody said, we are going to implement competency performance management. Somebody said, I want to do competency based interviewing. Somebody said, I want to do competency based learning and development, training initiatives, OD. But why do you think competency is becoming the nucleus, or it is occupying the center stage?
For understanding the competency level of that particular position, whether on this position he or she suits or not.
Okay, I have a viewpoint. When I say competencies, my basic understanding is the ability or the skill.
Louder, Minal.
Okay, ma'am, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we say competencies, it would mean the abilities or the behaviors or the skill sets, functional or behavior skill sets, which are required for a performance, which is just not mediocre performance, but which is a very superior performance, so that I can meet the bigger objective of the organization. So we are talking about superior performance, just not a mediocre or an average average performance of any position. So I think so when we talk about competencies, correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am, it is looking at what is that ability, what is that skill, what is that behavior I should expect from a particular role, which is at the which gives a maximum level of output, where I call that this guy is a high performer, So when I'm looking at competencies and I want to map competencies in an organization, because I expect that the people in this organization work at that level of skill sets, which is for a desired level of performance.
Okay. So Minal is trying to connect, saying that she added a word called performance, and he said, competency, superior performance, etc. Now, anybody else wants to?
I had, sorry, Arijit, please go ahead.
Yeah. No, you may continue. Fine.
Okay. Thank you so much. So, Nirmala, the thing is that I was just thinking about your question, and then I quickly connected to the current ongoing Olympics. So, for example,
can you just identify yourself?
I'm Gopa. I'm Gopa.
Yeah. Okay, I was not able to see you, so I'm just trying to figure out where you are, Gopa. Okay.
Yeah. So let's look at the current ongoing Olympics. So there are few sports which requires people to be very, very, tough and probably bulky. Like if I just take a sumo wrestling or anything of that sort, there are few sports which wants them to be lean and thin, and then there are certain sports which requires them to be completely, like fitness is of course there. For all the sports, the fitness is a requirement, but the fitness specific to that sport has a defined parameter. And so for me, competence, I think, would come from there, that while everybody is expected to carry out a certain role for the larger organization, but each role has certain requirement. They expect certain outcome from that particular role. So if it has to be a training intervention, it has to be maybe any kind of a intervention for them to build them up. I think it has to be need specific. It has to fit the role. It has to fit the requirement of the role, if I may use the word.
Okay, great. So looks like the understanding is that if there is, whether it's a specific or whether it is a generic, but yes, the presence or the absence, you have connected it to performance. Is that clear? I mean, in that sense, that is what I understood. As I understand, yes. Okay,
yes,
right. Now, what I really want you to understand before you embark into competency mapping, what I was wanting to say is, why was it 2 decades ago we were not concerned about the competency at all? We never thought of competency 2 or 3 decades ago. Today, considering that the world has become a global village, and businesses wanting to achieve excellence, performance, etc., right? Then they realized, based on all that research, which we will talk about, McClelland, etc., saying that, hey, traditionally we are hiring people, but is it giving us superior performance? Because organizations don't have time today. Okay, they can't afford huge costs, and they have a kind of a ECR ratio, what I call it, a employee cost to revenue. So there is a certain amount of percentage of wage costs. Now you have to translate that into business value, right? So if you are not able to, again I'll come back to that Arjit saying that if I'm not able to hire the right kind of a talent, or we call it as best talent, is he or she able to perform absolutely to superior performance? That is why competency has become very, very critical, especially in today's times where the market is dynamic. Okay, the VUCA world. So it is the whichever organization, see, be it most of you, like there's somebody said family owned organization. Okay, so 2-3 decades ago, organization didn't have what? Competition. Customer was nowhere. What I made got sold. Monopoly. I enjoyed everything. But today organizations cannot afford. Customer is key. Competition. How do you differentiate from your competitors? What is that, competitive advantage you have? All that you can have only when you have the right kind of workforce or the best kind of workforce. Now, just by saying right kind of workforce, best kind of workforce doesn't give you any, what I would say, qualification, right? I need to understand what is the right kind of workforce. What is it ultimately? What do I need in my workforce? So I need those competencies to ensure that every employee or all the employees who are embedded in those roles in the typical organizational structure translate it into, by working, they are giving me superior performance or translating it to business value. And that is why today I do not take more time, and I'm sure most of you understand that competencies are definitely gained a lot of currency, because that's the key to superior performance. That's the key to superior performance. So if you have competencies in your organization embedded in your employees, then you are sure at least to get superior performance. Okay. Now, absolutely. Thank you, Gopa, for, in fact, yes, we will talk about those a little bit more in detail now. You talked about fitness, you talked about, the, what is it, generic and also the specific. Now, having spoken about that, now, what is a competency, right? We need to understand what is a competency. Hey guys, please keep your videos on, except for Majumdar sir, nobody else, huh? Vanessa and all. Okay, so what is a competency now? So when we talk about what is a competency, anybody, so what do you understand by competency now? What is a competency?
Specific skill sets required to execute the job efficiently, or ensure the process is done most efficiently.
So as per the Spencer and Spencer, great scientists who have really worked, psychologists, and as per McClelland, it is an underlying, we have to first of all understand very, very clearly when you are connecting and rating that, hey, competency gives us assurance of, superior performance, then I need to understand, hey, what is within that competency which is really giving the superior performance? So once you're very, very clear, this is the basic foundation, before you build the building of competency frameworks and dictionaries. So it is an underlying characteristic. It is an underlying characteristic, remember this, okay, of any individual, which is causes superior performance. It's an underlying characteristic which causes superior performance. But there are other couple of statements. It is causally related, criteria referenced, and causes superior performance. So when I talk about underlying characteristic, that means I want you to understand, when I say competency, that means it is embedded deeply. It is deeply embedded. This characteristic is deeply embedded. Causally related means causes the absence or the presence of a competency. Like, for example, the presence of a competency high on creativity, innovation will create that person highly creative. Whatever he exhibits through his behavior, his work will be highly creative. Okay? Or causes. What is causally related? A sales manager can achieve very high sales if he has a great sales skills. So when I say underlying characteristic which causes, so the absence or the presence of that competency will result into either a superior performance or a poor performance. Is that very clear? Yes. And when I say criteria, that means you can clearly say a poor performer and a superior performer. So so when you take a sample of, for validity, a poor performer, like for example, HR business partner. I'm sure all of you can relate with HR business partner. The nature or the role of work, say one aspect of the HR business partner is also to actually show empathy to a lot of counseling. So what happens, a person with this competency, a person, HR business partner, if he has that, will be very high on what team building, interpersonal relationship. But a B HR business partner who does not have this empathy, which is a competency, will not be able to have good personal relationship, may not be a good listener, etc. Is that very clear, guys? Just to give you an understanding. Now, after having said that, hey, what are the components or what are these underlying characteristics we are talking about? Okay, so generally, if you refer to any book, so there are 5 characteristics when you talk about a competency. Now, it could be in different proportions, but when you talk a competency, it is 5 characteristics. So they are what? We'll start from below: skill, knowledge, the self-concept, or what we call it as, the entire thing as attitudes and values and the self-image. I will explain to you all this, traits and motives. So these are the 5 things which we talk about as underlying characteristics. So typically, when I use a very famous analogy, typically, like in psychology, you use a lot of analogies. So if I were to use, and I'm sure most of you, because you all are behavioral trainers, etc., I'm sure you know this Iceberg model, which is very, very common. So when we look at it visually, iceberg, what is it? There is something called tip, or the above the waterline and below the waterline, right? So we can see maybe 20% of it outside iceberg. When you see it's floating, and 80% of it is submerged. Okay, so typically when I compare and actually use an analogy of iceberg, so the skill part is at the tip, because that is what is observable. For example, I ask a payroll guy, you know what a payroll does? HR payroll executive, what does he or she do?
Processes the salaries of employees.
So the nature of work will be
mechanical.
Nature of work will be getting all the inputs from all the business functions in terms of all the
it would be very technical,
deductions, etc. Okay, and the payroll help desk will have many people pouring in. If the payroll guy does not do his job, what? Kisi ko zyada de diya, somebody's deduction. Why did you deduct 1 day's salary from me? What was the reason? Somebody's PF more or somebody's this less. So what is that? Skill. So he needs to actually, so when he is actually collating all the data, he should be able to use certain software, the payroll software, ensure everything is done right properly. So that's a skill which you can see, right? But that skill below is the knowledge. That means he should have a knowledge of what the compensation structuring, the elements, right? How much of deductions I need to make. If, like, for example, the HRA, it is only 30%, 40%. And if he does not do the deductions on the PF deductions, the ESI. So he has to have all the statutory knowledge of all the statutory regulations, right? And so therefore, what happens? What is at the tip? You can only see the skill and the knowledge. So skill can be tested how? How can we test a skill? Is it easy to test a skill? When you want to hire a payroll guy, what will you do typically?
You do like a regular assessment.
Arjit, where are you? So typically, what does one do? What we will do? Hey, guys, this is the system. Please make a spreadsheet of a payroll. Look at all the, this is HRIS. So I will not just, so I will give him. And how do I test for knowledge? I will ask him questions. On what? On the subject matter. So what is it required so that he can do the job? So skill and knowledge are something which I can see, I can test, etc. But what are those things deeply entrenched? It is the deepest is your motive at the core part of it. Like, for example, your motivation, that drive to attend this program. Why? Because, hey, I really want to learn, competency mapping because it is helpful in my organization. So that manifested into a behavior, right? And you are here. So that drive, then you select a particular behavior. That means you take the initiative to do certain things. So motives are something which will energize you, which will make you passionate. So therefore, if a person says, okay, you come for a recruitment, recruitment specialist, you are interviewing, and then say, okay, so uh, are you passionate about recruiting? Yes, I'm passionate about recruiting. Okay. Acha. So so when you are passionate, how will you test? You will test that body language. Is there passion in him when he is talking about the subject, right? Is he knowledgeable about it? Because if I'm motivated, then I will try to learn more from every part, whatever it is. So that's called the motive. Okay, it energizes. It's deep inside you. So that is manifested into your behavior. What is this trait? Traits are your habits, enduring for a longer time. They take a long time to develop. And traits are something which actually, which you can't make out if you have met a person 1 day or 2 days. You have to stay with that person constantly to understand, observe him. Then you will be able to know. For example, um, typically what happens, a trait, a counselor, again, because we talked about HRBP, that person, she or she has to look after the entire workforce of that employee cycle for all the people working in that vertical. Now, what is the key trait she will need to have? Listening, right? Listening. But can you just say, hey, 1 day I listen, 2 days I don't listen, huh? Trait is something which has to be enduring. Enduring means it has to be consistent and long time enduring. So trait doesn't come in a day or two. It comes out of habits, right?
Ma'am, I have a question here.
Yeah, this is identify
I
yourself.
am Minal. I'm Minal, and I have a question.
Okay, yeah.
Why is trait in the invisible zone? Because they are my habits and they can be visible, isn't it?
So habit is something, that is what is observed. Are you saying? What do you do if listening is your trait, which comes with, with as a trait for you? Then what do? You will not interrupt a person when somebody is talking to you or saying something. Got me, Minal?
I got it, ma'am, but I thought that any trait or any behavior is usually a visible part of a personality, so I was wondering why in the Iceberg model it's shown as invisible. I understand motives or values, okay, but behaviors are usually seen, isn't it?
Right. So what is behavior? Behavior is only a manifestation of your motives or your trait or your self-image or a self-concept. Am I clear? I'm coming to that. I'll show you a slide. It is a manifestation. So therefore, to respond to your question, Minal, so in an interview, you want to test, because it's very, very important. Like, for example, when we say cost effective hire, okay? So I have to, first of all, list down, hey, okay, I'll give you this example. For example, between a squirrel and a turkey. You know what is a squirrel, no? Small animal, okay? And a turkey. Now I need to recruit somebody. I have already a turkey to climb the trees, okay? But the squirrel has that natural trait to climb the trees, but a turkey can't. Okay, so what happens? Trait is submerged, is invisible, but behavior is observed, right? So when you are testing for your traits or motives, what do? You actually probe and understand the person's behavior. Behavior is your manifestation of all that. Are you with me, Mrinal?
Yes, ma'am. So you mean to say that, yeah, I got it. You mean to say that behavior is the manifestation of the traits that I have.
Exactly. So if I consider that listening is a very important trait for a counselor, which not that I can't train, but it's going to take a long time, I will say, hey, this is a trait which is very, very important. Okay. Now there are two people, Devender and Majumdar. Now I need to select one of them for my counselor. Okay. Now what will I do? I will test for this trait, not by just asking for skill or knowledge, which will come to, we will do a behavioral event interviewing, in the sense that I want to understand, probe, and see how has he behaved in certain situations. Because to test for traits, motives, etc., you can't test them like skill, give them a test, or like knowledge, ask them questions. Okay, because they're submerged. So your behavior, the manifested behavior, will clearly state in a critical situation whether you have the trait or whether you don't have the trait. Got it? Are you with me, Mrinal?
Yes, ma'am. I understood. Thank you.
But as we go further, we'll definitely deep dwell into it. This is just the tip again. Tip of. All right. So let us just look at this. As I said, what is a skill? You need to understand that is just an ability. What is knowledge? It is an information. Okay. All that, like for example, there's a doctor. So he needs a lot of knowledge about how a human body works, how. So the entire 5 years of study he does is a knowledge about the human body, etc. Along with it, he learns some skills. So what is self-image and concept? That means, how do you view yourself? How and what is that self-concept about yourself? Do you see yourself as a very confident person, as a leader, as a developer? So what is the image you have about your own self? So that is very, very important as well. Okay. Now, as I said, trait is identified. Typically, this behavior is only a manifestation, I said. What is manifestation? That means it shows up. Okay. It can be observed, right? It can be observed. Now, what is a motive? As I said earlier, motive is that drive, that intent, which again, when you have that motive, then it selects at a particular behavior, saying that, for example, my motive is achievement. Okay. What will I do? Then what will my behavior be? I will actually then think of big goals. Then I will try to work towards that goals. I will want to succeed in them. So that is my behavior. What is the outcome? So there will be certain action and there will be certain results. Are you with me, guys? Very clear? If you please, you can give me a thumbs up if you have understood, or a thumbs down if you need further more clarification. Okay, so that way there will be a great indication for me. All right, Mrinal, good to go? Okay. So again, just to give you a little re-emphasizing on that, so I'm sure already I have spoken about it, that knowledge and skill is something which you can test for and easily, make a person do. But these are the things which are deeply embedded and you can't see much below the waterline, which are the motives, traits. And now when you say a competency, all these things form a part of the competency. The knowledge, the skill, the trait, the motive, the self-image, all these things form a part of the competency. Now, coming to Nila's point, if you notice, when you take competency, the trait and motives form what? The core of the personality. They are the ones which are very, very difficult to develop. So especially like, for example, I say, hey, I need to recruit, say, for example, a person in my compensation and benefits. Okay. Then what will I need to have? A trait which is called eye for detail. I can maybe train a person for eye for detail, but oh my God, it's going to take. Why not? It's like, training a turkey to climb a tree. I rather hire a squirrel. So likewise, then you will, what you will do, you will take a person who has that eye for detail. It is actually a trait. Okay, listening is a trait. What are some of the other traits? Let me see, at least for the HR professionals. Creativity and innovation is actually, creativity is also a trait. You can't really train a person, you know. So when you look at it, you can train. It's like, you know, putting, when you take out toothpaste from the a tube, you can always put it, but it requires a huge effort, a cost, as opposed to just getting a new one. So it's like that. Got it? So whenever we are recruiting people, yeah. Somebody was wanting to say something.
Empathy is a trait.
I'm not able to hear. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Dhruvajyoti. Empathy. Empathy can be treated as a trait.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Empathy is not something which can be, I'm not saying it can be trait. Okay. Now, okay, since you have come up with empathy, let me give you an example. In fact, when competency development was being, you know, a little bit about the history of competency, this I'm sure all of you know, because all of you are L&D, that David McClelland was the one who actually did a lot of research and lot of, you know, work in this area of competency. He was the father figure for competency. Okay. Then he came up with this excellent, he published a paper in 1973 saying that, you know, testing for intelligence. I mean, you should be testing for competence and not for intelligence. Why did he do so? He said that, you know, through various experiments, which you can read, I will send you an article on that. He said that, you know, we typically do a lot of tests for aptitude tests, IQ tests, typically if you see the traditional methods of it, and thinking that these tests will predict high performance. Okay, but it is something else which predicts. Through his research, he found out that it is something else which predicts superior performance. So since you said empathy, one of the research he did was with counselors. Okay, with counselors. What did he do? Now in US, you would actually recruit a lot of counselors who were PhDs, white women, and they were highly qualified, you know, PhDs in counseling, and sent to where? Sent to these underdeveloped African countries, the African places where they needed a lot of, you know, counseling, be it in the marriage, be it for personal, be it because a lot of abuse used to happen. So they were sent there. Now, with this research, I can't see people again and everybody again on audios. Huh? Okay. Please put on your audios, videos, guys. Okay. So what did they do? What did he found out through research? What do you think? Anybody who can, you know?
Learning attitude. Learning attitude?
No. I'm connecting this with somebody who said empathy is a trait.
Achha, okay.
So can I just guess?
Yeah, guesswork allowed. Gopa, is that so?
Yeah, I'm Gopa. So possibly they found that while these people were highly qualified, but they could not sort of relate with the issues faced by these people, the subject matter whom they were supposed to counsel.
Excellent.
And possibly there was a gap.
You are spot on, because the white women who were brought up in a different kind of a culture, with a different kind of a value system, everything, when they were sent to these underdeveloped African countries to counsel the black women, they were also assisted by black women who did not have formal education in counseling, but accepting an on-job training from the PhDs, these counselors. Okay, but they found that these black women were much more effective in counseling as opposed to these PhDs, you know, white women who are highly qualified, you know, academically highly qualified. So you are spot on. What did they lack? Empathy. What did they lack? Empathy. That empathy trait, they were not able to empathize because, you know, not sensitive to those local conditions, right? When you're counseling, you need to not show sympathy, but empathy, as we say, is literally, putting yourself into their shoes, which was not possible because you have to have that, sensitivity, have that sensitivity towards intercultural kind of acclimatization, local surround. So they come from a different kind of a culture, etc. So empathy. It is not that you can't train, but yes, definitely, as I gave that example of a turkey and a squirrel, so traits are not easily developed. So whenever you recruit for people, whenever you do an what is it, competency profiling, you have to ensure, hey, what is that key trait this role or this job requires, which is core and which is not easily trainable, because then it becomes, your recruitment becomes very cost effective, as opposed to looking at the other, just oh great, he's from a I am excel, everything, great institutes, high IQ, excellent skills. But if he is lacking those, say, like for example, I take a simple, very at an entry level, in a BPO, a call center executive, and I say he is great at work, he has great skills and knowledge, etc. But when he is actually handling calls, he is not able to listen properly, he is not able to close calls because there are key traits of interpersonal understanding and listening, which are very, very key. Then what happens? No, any amount of training doesn't really give him that kind of a leverage. Okay, guys. So what is important here, the takeaway for you is that skill and knowledge are at the surface level, but what is deeply embedded as that's like the iceberg are your traits and motives and the self-concept. Now, so, and I don't want to take more time here. I said this is a causes outcomes. If you have a certain competency, like say, if you have this achievement motive, the drive for results, the drive for, continuous improvement, the drive for setting high goals is there. It causes the desired outcomes or the desired superior performance. Okay, guys? Okay, I'll just take a minute or two. Like, for example, again, if you see here, like, whatever is submerged here, this actually, the knowledge, skill, your behavior is only a manifestation of the entire thing which is submerged. And in fact, when you devise these benefit schemes, etc., variable incentives, etc., and compensation, we also look at, hey, what are those, besides the intrinsic motivators for a person, what are those extrinsic motivators as well? And there are certain psychometric tests, be it like career drivers, RSI instruments, or other FIRE-OB or Johari window, which helps you to understand both intrinsic motivators and extrinsic motivators of a person. Okay, thereby you actually gauge, saying that, because you just cannot get that by just asking a question, hey, are you passionate about this job? What are your values? So he might say things which suit you, right? So therefore, whenever you ask such questions about the motive or trait, you need to use certain other instruments, tools and techniques to gauge what is that motive, what is the trait. Okay, guys, let us just go on. Now, having said that, now, very interestingly, before I further get into a little more, I want to understand from you all, there is something called competence and competency. Anybody who can tell me what is the difference between a competence and a competency? When you talk about competence, yeah, somebody was about to say something. Yeah.
Single trait and collective traits.
Okay, so when you're saying competence, there is a particular job, which is like maybe an electrical job or something. It's to say he has the competence to do that job. Okay, but when we are to do that job, but when we are talking about the ability to do that job, but when we are talking about a competency, it is more related to a person, which includes everything with knowledge, skills, and motives, traits, and attitudes. Now, most of you said we want to do competency mapping, etc., etc. I'm not getting into the history of competency because you can always read it in the book. Okay, the history of how we started from the IQ and personality test, which really did not predict performance. So therefore, when David McClelland actually did a lot of work in the area of competency through his research, and he said that the absence or the presence of competencies will give you superior performance, or rather it can predict performance.
Now, I just have a question before we go forward.
Yeah, you got to be a little louder, please.
I have a question.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah.
And your name? Because I don't know why I'm
Yeah, Meenal. M-I-N-E-L.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, now that you explained to us the competencies, the traits, motives, skills, behaviors, when we are doing a competency mapping framework, supposing I have to identify competencies for a functional, for a department or for a set of people, then I'll have to frame questions accordingly to figure out, right? What are the traits?
We are coming to that now. We are coming to that.
Okay.
We will be now. So we are actually unfolding. Slow. First, I thought I must make you understand. So what is that an individual will say the competencies? Okay. Now, having said this, what am I talking about? I'll go to a blank. I'll just blank sheet.
Ma'am, can I suggest something? Because since you're not able to see all of us in the frame, if you just can click on the view and just select gallery, maybe you should be able to see it if you keep it in the side-by-side view gallery. So if you go to the extreme top right corner, you must be getting a grid kind of a icon stating view. You need to select gallery, side-by-side view.
Okay, I did that. Let me see now. Yeah, I can see some of you now.
Yeah, 6:6 screen you can see maximum when the PPT view is on.
So I can see some and I can't see all. Huh?
Yes. Yeah, you can still increase that if you just sort of drag from the corner, that view kind of enlarges and you can probably fit in more windows.
Okay, let me see. All right. Okay, I'll try that a little later. I'm going to save time.
Sorry. I just thought since you were finding it difficult to look at all of us together.
No, absolutely not. I think you're welcome. It's very important, and I think this is a good point you made. That so that I can see some of you. I can see some of you here now. Okay, great. Now, Mrinal was asking a question, and I was just about to come to that. Okay. See, we talk so much about a competency because I thought I spent time there because primarily you have to understand what is a competency. And now most of you understand what is a competency. Now she asked me an interesting question, but how do we do? What is it? Okay. Just like when I was a student and I used to wonder what it is. Now, there are two things when we talk about a competency. What is that? When we talk about a competency, one is what does the individual have, right? Right? Till now we were talking about what does the individual have.
Yeah.
Right? Next, so I'm writing that have. The next one is what does the individual require to do a job on superior performance lines? Are you getting me where I am coming from? So one is what does the individual have? The other dimension is what does the individual require? Say for example, Archana, and let me see what is Archana's role. She's a consultant HR advisory and outsourcing. Okay. What does the individual Archana require if she's working in the role of a OD consultant in a particular organization? Are you with me? Am I coming closer now? What does that mean? Saying that, hey, in an organization has an organizational structure, right? That's the first thing. What does an organization have in a structure? Structure gives you what? An understanding of
role, hierarchy.
It gives you hierarchy. It gives you levels where it also gives you a good understanding of how many roles or positions are there in an organization, right? Across different levels. Now, when I'm talking about competency mapping, what does it mean? First of all, I need to understand, hey, in this organized structure, which has roles slash maybe functions and slash organization, okay? What are those competencies which are required by this different roles or positions to ensure that when I take a person, individual in this role, he is able to perform well. Are you with me now? Mrinal, have I come closer to you? Is everybody, just give me a thumbs up,
Yes, ma'am.
whatever, have you understood? So one is individual, right? What competencies does he have? The other is, what are the competencies required by different roles encompassing the organization, okay? So that when I'm hiring, or whether I'm using it for performance management or for training and development, I'm able to then ensure and that is the standardization in terms of my what? Level of competency. Got it? So what are we doing in competency? We are actually looking at what are the competencies required by different roles in the organization. So when I say competency mapping, anybody now can you tell me what is competency mapping?
I can map for an individual the required competencies that are desired for superior performance. For this particular role, which this person is doing, for example, an HR executive, okay? For this particular role, what are the competencies that are required so that the output is superior performance?
So what is
Am I right?
competency? It is a process of mapping the competencies, not of a person. First, what is required by that role? For example, if you are working, yeah, rightly stated, just reiterating that if I have HR BP as a role, maybe 10 people are working, 12 people are working, but this role, what are the various competencies required in terms of knowledge, skill, motives, traits, etc.? What are those competencies which are required for this role to perform or to achieve superior performance? Is that very clear now? Okay. So when I'm talking about a competency framework, okay, that means I'm saying for all, so we will come to a framework a little later. So first of all, let us understand at least at a role level now. So there will be different roles. There will be financial roles, there will be HR roles, there will be technical roles, there will be production roles. So in an organization, so typically what happens when you do competency mapping, you are then looking at all the roles and mapping the competencies. From where do you think you will, so when you're doing a mapping of competency, what is the basic document you will require then?
Job description.
Job description.
Exactly. Absolutely. So typically what happens, so when I'm talking about competency mapping, I need what? A proper updated job description, which will help me understand, say for example, I'm talking about a marketing manager. I'm talking about a marketing manager. Marketing manager, I'll say I will need a brief, a job description, okay, describing in detail what is the purpose of this job, role or a position, and also breaking it up into tasks, activities, because typically what happens, you are actually looking at if he is supposed to be doing this task and activities, what is the knowledge required, what is the skill required. So I need, what do? You do a job analysis to understand what is it required, how do you define these competencies. You do an analysis to come to a conclusion of the kind of competencies which are required for every role or a position. Got it, guys? Okay. Now, a small, I have explained to you very, because I don't want to jump the gun too much of it. I want to take a test of your understanding. Okay. You have been given a Excel sheet, right? If you look at it, I'll show you, I'll stop sharing. All of you have an Excel sheet. You have to, let me go to that Excel sheet, I think. Desktop. Yeah. Okay. Can you go to your Excel sheet? You have an Excel sheet, all of you, where you have to identify what is a value, what is a motive, right? Can you do that quickly? I will also go to that screen and see where is that. Did you find your Excel sheet? Merit must have sent you an Excel sheet in the mail.
No, ma'am, I didn't.
No,
receive.
ma'am. Excel sheet I haven't got.
I don't have.
Ma'am, we only received.
There are lots of documents and videos, but there is no
We
Excel
haven't
sheet in that.
received any Excel as such.
One second. I have a sheet there. Yeah. Hey, have you sent that Excel sheet? Huh? Huh? Have you sent that Excel sheet? Huh? Jara base देना, हाँ, jara base देना exercise. Huh? Just mail it to them. Yeah. I think you attach it on the screen. That will be best. I'm also opening that.
Ma'am, can you please share it?
Yeah, I'm actually sharing it. Already they are sharing. I'm just opening that and also putting it on the. Can you see this?
Yes.
And Wilma also shared it with you all. Have you got it?
Oh, I'll just check.
Yeah, you have it with you all now? So the exercise is asking you to, it's a list of how many, let me just see, list of 38 items, okay? You need to tick, these are those attributes. Now, which is a value, which is a skill, and which is a behavior, okay?
Ma'am, I haven't received the mail as yet.
Or you can just, if you have a white sheet, also you can just write it. Then for everybody's understanding, I will then open up the scores key and then you can validate with whatever response you have given. Got it?
Ma'am, can you please share it through chat box?
Yeah, Vilma has already. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we can share this. We can see the screen. Yes.
Yeah, Vilma must have already shared it with you.
Ma'am, we have not yet received it.
Neither
we have not received it.
No, it must be just coming.
Yeah. So do you want us to prepare a similar Excel on an Excel?
No. Easiest way to do it is what you can do. Just take a white sheet of paper. Don't create anything. What you do, appraisal. Is it a value, skill, or a behavior? Write appraisal and just write value, or is it a skill or a behavior? Don't have to create a value, Excel sheet at all. Just take a white sheet of paper. Then once you are done with this, then I will just show you the score key, and you can also validate whether you have appropriately done the right kind of a marking.
So can we continue to the next? Appraisal has been done. So
I have received, I think you people also must have got it.
So so what you need to do, Majumdar, see,
Yeah.
there are a list of 38 items. You just click on, is appraisal a value or a skill or a behavior? Just put a small tick,
okay.
a right tick. Got it?
Okay, yeah.
Skills or behavior.
Minal, is the exercise clear? What you need to do, Minal?
Yes, ma'am, I just got the sheet. I'm doing it.
Okay.
Madam, it's all done.
Done? Okay.
Yeah.
Now please check your answers. Appraisal. Okay. Appraisal is a
Skill.
skill. How many of you have got it? Most of you? Skill?
Yep.
Ma'am,
Great.
can you give us a minute? 1 minute. 1 minute.
No problem.
Ma'am, is there anything after 27th? We can see only up to 27th. Yeah, okay.
Wow.
No, we can see till 38.
38
38,
is there.
38
We
is
can
there.
see till 38.
Yeah, now we can.
Don't get influenced by the score key. Okay, now if you have finished, you can check your answers with the score. So can I read through for you?
Yeah. That will be better.
Appraisal is a skill.
Yes.
Okay. Body language is a
Behavior.
behavior. Coaching is a skill. Commitment is a value. Confidentiality is again a value.
Okay.
Counseling, so it's a skill. Then courtesy, polite courtesy is again a value.
Value.
Customer care
Behavior.
is a skill.
Is a skill. Okay.
Data facility is a behavior. Decisiveness is a behavior.
Behavior.
Detail handling is again a behavior. Driving for quality is again a behavior. Environmental awareness is actually a value, being aware of environmental awareness. Equal opportunity is again a value. Honesty is a value. Influencing is a skill. Initiating action is a behavior. Integrity is a value. Interviewing is a skill. Manage meetings is a behavior.
Judgment. You missed judgment.
Judgment skill.
Judgment is a behavior. Mentoring is again a skill. I missed something. Monitoring is a behavior. Negotiating is a skill. Review is again a skill. Persuasiveness is a behavior.
Not a value.
Isn't that a value? Persuasiveness?
You are persuading people.
No, it's a behavior.
It's an action. It's a behavior, right?
Okay.
Planning, you're doing something, action. Planning, so behavior.
Can this be a skill as well? Planning?
Yeah. Planning can also be a skill. Planning and organizing. It can come. Like, for example, when you say listening can be a skill and also listening can be also a trait like that. Presenting, it's a skill. Presentation skills, Problem solving is a skill. Again, project management skills. Okay. Quality consciousness is again a value. Reliability is again a value. See, organizations talk about certain values. It's a reliable product. Reliability is a value. Selling is a skill. Strategic planning is again behavior. Where are we now?
Sensitivity.
Planning is a skill. No. Strategic planning is a skill. Sensitivity. That means I'm being very sensitive. That's a behavior. Okay. Stress tolerance is again a behavior. Team working is a behavior. And time management is a skill. Okay, guys, now I'm sure all of you know what is a skill, what is a behavior, what is the value. That's great, because when you're doing competency mapping, that's a fundamental thing we should be able to understand. How do you differentiate between a value and a trait and a behavior, etc. Okay.
Ma'am, team working, can it be team working? Can it be a skill?
Team working, yes, it can also be a skill, but because I'm putting it in the time of team, you're working action, so it is a behavior. Okay, like team building skills or team skills, right? Because if this role is supposed to be collaborating, actually working along with like if you're working in a project, typically you are looking at some of the traits and some of also the skills which are required there. Okay.
Stress tolerance, it's a behavior or is it a skill?
Stress, behavior, action, tolerance, stress tolerance. It's a behavior.
Ma'am, data facility.
Yeah, we had this year, no?
Ma'am, all the actions.
Number 11. Number 11, data facility.
Ma'am, data facility, ma'am.
Facilitating something, action. So wherever you see some kind of an action, what is behavior which can be observed, which can be measured, right? Which can be seen, right? Guys, I think you really deserve a nice break now for 10 minutes, no? Because you have done, responded to 38 questions. So we take a short break, guys. Now it's 4:16. So you can take a 10-minute break and be back by what time? Let us come to a consensus. 4:16.
Madam, I have a question here.
Please do
Actually, some of the attributes, these are a little bit dicey. It means that sometimes we are a little bit confusing whether it is skills or behavior.
Right.
So how in that case, and practically when we are having these attributes, how to differentiate these things?
How to differentiate? Typically, you look at it like, go back to a grammar. If it is being in the context of action, then it is behavior. If it is shown like a noun, then it is. Quick recap, we actually understood what is why competencies, and then what is a competency, what does it consist of, and the 5 underlying characteristics we talked about. And then we also talked about some part of it is actually above the waterline and some part of it is below the waterline. Okay. And then we also spoke about taking an analogy of this iceberg, saying that it is typically the behavior which is seen, and this is actually a manifestation of all that which is actually hidden in the or immersed in the water. Okay. Now, having said that, before I actually talk about the generic competencies, okay, a quick, small, again, something for the gray matter. You take a white paper. I'm sure all of you have a pen and a paper there. All right. Think of a boss, great boss who influenced you, or a teacher who influenced you, or a leader who influenced you. Okay, or somebody you think you really is your icon or role model. Now put a blank iceberg and then please identify or write down some of the things which you liked about her and categorize them or put them in. Is it knowledge, or is it skill, or is it for the traits, or is it for the motives? Or like, for example, I will just give you an example. Like, for example, I had a teacher whom I really kind of liked her. I mean, I felt she was a great teacher. Why? Because most of the teachers, yes, they do teach, they do have great knowledge, but I thought she had great empathy for students. She could step into them, understand them. So I really liked her because of her empathy. So like that, please think of somebody who has influenced your life, and please write those one or two things, so that this will clearly then establish a good understanding of how do you differentiate Because when you do competency mapping for your roles, then you need to have a very good understanding. How can you differentiate a trait from a motive, etc. Okay, so please just write one, and we will take just 2 examples and we'll ask, hey, please tell us what you know. Okay, you can make a picture so that you can just quickly then write down. An iceberg, knowledge, skill, I can put that. Yeah, you can just put this picture there like that, empty, and write the things which you really liked about your role model. Was it knowledge? What is a skill? Or was it a trait for? Or what is it a motive?
Ma'am, I just have one question. Is it okay? I have a trait. I don't know whether it's a trait or what. This person would always give his team members an opportunity to grow. So where would it come? Opportunity to grow. This manager or the leader whom I had, he always gave us an opportunity to grow in the organization.
Opportunity to
grow.
So that means giving, I would say opportunity to grow typically comes from that a trait of trying to understand the other person, right?
Okay.
A real interest in the person. So that is more from a trait perspective.
Ma'am, one question on that. So if we're looking at an opportunity to grow, as it wouldn't be also considered as a value because of my ingrained value that I have, that is why I'm giving an opportunity to someone else. Wouldn't it be considered in that sense?
So it looks, it comes. So when you do this when you do a behavioral event interview, you want to probe further, it comes from, hey, is he looking at from the perspective of an organization says, as a value, as in an organization, you are saying, we want to give opportunities to everybody for career growth. So that will come from a value. Say, for example, from the organization's perspective, you don't have that value, but this person, out of a lot of empathy, understanding for that person, he is wanting to give opportunity. So therefore, I will say, when is this, I could also take that as a kind of a thing that which can come into as a value. For example, there's one organization which says, act as an owner. What would that be? As an owner of the company.
Accountability.
Value. They believe in this value. Act as a owner of the company. So therefore, because they believe in this value, how do they live that value? See, you may believe, you may put big posters, act as a, why do you say act as owner? You want to drive the employee to exceed performance, do good, take ownership, etc. Okay, but as an employer, as an organization, how do you live that value? What they do is by offering ESOPs, employee stock option plans, across all the levels of the organization, to show that, hey, maybe at a lower level they are offering few shares, at a higher level they are offering more shares. But share means what? Stock. That means I'm an owner of a stock, so I'm an owner of a company. So to give that feeling, are you able to make that sense? Connect it. For example, a value like creativity and innovation. There is this multinational company called 3M. I'm sure all of you know about 3M, who does Post-it, who also does Scotch Brite, etc. One of their values is what? Creativity and innovation. Okay. Now, we are coming to, we will be doing that types of competencies. So that becomes their, I will call it as core competency or generic competency. That means I want all my employees across all levels with certain percentage of creativity and innovation. How do I live that value? I have to live that value, right? What does it mean? The organization should have certain policy or procedure to ensure that you are actually, doing it. How do you make it live? By withdrawing their products from the shelf which are more than 5 years old. Because what happens if I continue to put those old products which are on the shelf, which are actually doing very well, selling, but I'm going to cannibalize, means I'm actually putting an axe on the stocks which are actually selling well. Because if I don't withdraw them and put new products, what will be the initiative for R&D guy to actually create more new products, and for the sales guy to sell new products? I'm comfortable घर से phone लगा के ऐसे dump कर दिया and sell, it sells. I'm somebody who's in the pharma, knows very well. No, are you getting me? Okay. So Minal, yeah, you can take it as, growth opportunity. If you are saying it's a value statement you have made, then it becomes a value. Okay.
Ma'am,
translate. Okay, guys. Finished? Okay, I'll give 2 more.
Ma'am, motivating other will be behavioral aspect or a value? It's not value, right?
Motivating others, it will be a trait.
Trait. Okay.
Okay, guys, 2 more minutes. Done? Okay.
Yes.
Anybody just wanting to, I'll just take 2 examples.
Yes,
Anybody?
I am volunteering, madam.
Majumdar ji, yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, this traits and values I have written, one of my bosses, the traits I have written, that's integrity, honesty, and confidentiality.
Great.
And value.
I hope you have taken only one person for everything, not one
yes,
person
yes,
for
yes.
one thing.
No. Only one person. Only one person I have taken. And the judgment and mentoring as a value.
Okay. Great. Okay. Anybody else?
I have an observation. I was just thinking of all the 3 bosses who were a part in molding me in my career, and everywhere I have mentioned traits, and some skill sets. Nowhere I have mentioned knowledge. Even though knowledge is also key, but somehow I feel what makes a personality or helps us to remember someone are their behaviors and their skill sets, or how they have influenced our lives. No, we never think that, okay.
We are coming to that closer, because what happens, knowledge and skill, yes, you have, but so, okay, having said that, so traditionally what had happened when we were doing assessing, etc., we looked at 2 aspects. One is job, okay, and the person. And we started looking at what does the job need, and we translated into saying that this job needs these skills, and we started hiring. And we looked at the person. Now, but the competency makes the job and the person together in terms of, so therefore it looks at not in isolation just the skills or the knowledge. It looks at the behavioral aspect, which becomes, so if you recall, most of you, I'm sure, when I put this question, please think of somebody who's influenced you in your life, maybe a trainer, maybe a teacher, maybe anybody. You would have said, hey, most of them had great knowledge, most of them had great skills. But I think what influenced you most was something more with regard to her, maybe her self-image, self-concept, or more with her, trait, or more with her motives, right? I mean, if I can actually speak for everybody. Okay. So, okay, guys. So everybody is done and everybody is clear with it, so that we can proceed. And you can show me your reaction so that I can just proceed, or any clarity.
Ma'am, I don't know, since Meenal has raised this question and you said, I've written about a teacher where I've written that the knowledge part on the ability of the concept and the explanation of the concept. So I have taken that as as a fond memory of respecting that person.
So therefore, great knowledge, great skill, but probably in her methodology, she had that trait of understanding every person. You know, you just don't take a person for just delivering. Even as a trainer or facilitator, somebody does. But there is something else in that trait which helps you to actually, which makes you, hey, you know, influences you. Think
I agree.
a little more.
Maybe it was the methodology of teaching. Yeah.
Think little more. Okay.
I have a quick question on this particular point, which both Meenal and Monisha have just covered on the knowledge and the skills part. So I was just wondering, so a teacher is fondly remembered by any student if he or she is able to explain things in the way I understand, right? So this power of articulation, is it going to be is it a trait? Do we use it as a trait, or do we say that it is a behavior?
It's a combination, because it comes like a communication or listening. Because what happens, only because she has a great interest in the student, she will actually try and understand and say, hey, I will customize, I will actually ensure, because you will remember that, hey, this man, I hated maths, but because of her, I think I really loved maths. So what makes her special as a math teacher?
Is it a skill, ma'am? Is it a person's skill?
It's a combination of a trait and a skill.
Okay.
I have a quick question here, Nimla. Yeah, right. So how do I see this, summing it, if I have to sum it up, and very much in relation to an organization, how would I see, any skill and knowledge would be the job description? What are the basic essentials that I need to really, that are required for that particular job? And that is something, it's no brainer basically, right? That's basically a business and a functional input that as in competency framework design while we're doing it, that we get picked up. Whereas in terms of the rest of the 4 areas that we're looking at, that is something while designing a competency framework, we really need to have a deep dive understanding and correlate the essential underlying elements, right? And where not all of them might be required for us to define in the first place. It might be just a combination, some of them, or maybe all of them. It can be either. Just help me correct that. I'm just contemplating on that element right now.
So don't contemplate on that element right now, because you have gone 2 steps ahead, because I will give you certain models, and because what you are coming to is, okay, now if a set of these competencies and I've actually identified, so how do, so there is certain kind of, it is a little complex. So let us understand step by step, and definitely I'll help you to understand, Prachi, what I really, I know what exactly you're asking for. Okay, we will do that. So first, let us understand that the clarity on competencies. Okay. Now, let us then get to what are the kind of competencies typically are there in organizations. Okay. Types of competencies. And when you look at, typically, these are those generic competencies. When I say generic competencies, that means these competencies are required by organizations, across all levels. Okay. They could also be called as core competencies. All right. Like, say, for example, some of the service organizations where customer service orientation becomes very, very key. So across all levels, they will require to have customer service orientation, which is a competency. Okay. Or say, for example, so even these generic competencies, which we call as core competencies, are based on the strategy, of the organization. Okay. Now, and the strategy is dependent on what kind of what I would say, value discipline I have. So typically, I will just introduce this concept, and then, because right now, if I do it in the end, we won't have that time.
So, madam, here I just want to have one small clarification, because hello.
Yeah, I can hear you, Madhu. That's it.
Yeah. So actually, since now the organizations are becoming more and more lean and more action oriented, and expertise competency is playing a very major role. So I have seen particularly the competencies that are being mentioned by you just now, which is the core competencies or the generic competencies. People are not rewarded for this generic competencies, because this is the basic thing what I understood from the senior level people or the senior management.
So definitely, sir, we will come to that. We will qualify that as well. But just trying to create a kind of a foundation for you before I further delve into the complexities of the competency mapping. First, to introduce you, how do they emanate? Businesses exist to achieve a business goal or an objective, but all of the businesses have their strategy. Okay. Now, this strategy is dependent on something what I call as value discipline. Okay, simple. What is this? There are three kinds of value discipline, from where your generic competencies or where your core competencies emanate. What are the three kinds of value disciplines? One, operational excellence. It is not that an organization will suddenly pick up some kind of competencies. No, they have to be aligned with your business strategy, right? I need competencies which have to be aligned with business strategy. Two, product leadership. Customer intimacy. These are called three value disciplines. Now, any organization can be in one or two of those value disciplines to execute its strategy. Okay, in order to ensure that they excel in their product and services. Now, I'll just explain what is this operational excellence, product leadership, customer intimacy. Okay. Now, say for example, McDonald's. I'm sure everybody had a pizza or a burger in McD. Huh? Okay. So if you take this organization MACD, what is their focus on? Productivity. Okay. What is their focus on? Ensuring that they have standard operating procedures so that they repeat your process. Your pizza will be here exactly. If you buy today, it will be the same 10 days after, or you buy in any location, because they focus on standard operating procedures. Got it? And high on productivity. So what are they driving at? They're driving at efficiency, okay, and effectiveness through SOPs, increasing productivity. So they will have certain what core competencies, which are called operation excellence, efficiencies, which cutting across the organization, all levels, they have to have that. Then apart from that, they will also have to some amount customer intimacy, in the sense customer orientation, because they have to actually interface with customers, give pizza. Like if you go to a McDonald's, time, efficiency. See, you by the time you spell out, that guy will give you, right? Are you getting me where I am? So from where did that core competency come, or a generic competency come? From the value discipline. What is product leadership? Means think of an Apple, think of Google. They all want to all the time be leaders in their product or services. That means the focus is on what? Innovation and creativity. Only when all the employees are aligned to this innovation and creativity competency, only then they are able to produce products and services which are actually better than, or they were the first movers. Like for example, if you have an Apple, they're all the time coming out with new features, new products, etc. That means the focus is on creativity and innovation. So what would be their generic or core competency? Innovation, creativity, and innovation. Are you with me, guys? Huh? Are you with me on this? Now, when you talk about customer intimacy, think of Dell or think of some other organizations where they'll say, hey, I make products, by actually getting a lot of feedback from the customers, very intimate with the customers. So, like, for example, you go to a Dell website and you can create your own computer, right? So what I'm trying to tell you by actually making you understand these three value disciplines. Now, there are a set of competencies called core competencies or generic competencies, which emanate from there, which are drawn from these three value disciplines. Based on the organization's value discipline, I derive those core competencies. Okay, so I can be
I
best
have
at
a
one
question,
or yeah.
if I may. Yeah. So as we understand that the core competencies are applicable to all employees, right, across the organization.
Exactly.
But how about company's life cycle? I mean, a company is a startup or a well-settled company. Will this change during the the kind of company's life cycle where it is? Will it change according to that after a certain period of time? Let's say 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, will it change for the company?
Look at this. I'll just show you. So when you're talking, so I'm just beginning to get you now. So when you're talking about an organization, now you are organized, the competencies need not be static. Okay. They can change with the life cycle of your organization. They can change when you are diversifying into other products. Okay. They can change when you are also having as a product leader, but you're also setting up another company which is into operational excellence. So you'll have, so competencies are dynamic. Why are they dynamic? Because they have to be aligned with what you are serving to the customer, the customer value proposition, saying that if this is the product, this is, are you going to keep it as static for all years to come, the same product or same market conditions? So you're going to change your strategy. So your competencies, ultimately, what is competency? That means what is required in your workforce, which will translate into performance or productivity. Am I clear, guys, with this? Because that is something which you really have to get it. Okay.
So I understand it as it is linked directly with your business goals. So whenever your business goal may change, your core competencies can change, right?
Absolutely. Or for example, if you are doing an HR recruiter's role, but there is something else added to it. Today, role specific competencies I have mapped with HR recruiter's role. But if your JD has changed, don't you think your competencies have to change for that role? Will they change?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So let us come to that understanding of, okay.
So one question, ma'am. So that means before, if we are in the business of, or we are given the responsibility of doing a framework or competency framework, the key to it is that we have to understand what are the business objectives and the strategy which the business is looking at. That is the core fundamental
vision and mission.
You said it right. Now, competencies are contextual. What is context? For your organization, what is critical competency may not be critical for another organization. Okay? Competencies are role specific, function specific, because the amount may be the same competency, but a finance structure may be not important, but for an HR, it may be more important. Are you getting me? So they have a context. Now, since we have come to that, let me so when you look at competencies for an organization, for your own organization, how do you go about? So first you start designing of the competencies. So you have to look at it like what? Like an engineer who looks at, creating a house, the blueprint, right? So how do you go about? So we have to look at the competency architecture. So a typical, I just gave a diagrammatic view of how does a competency architecture look like. Okay. So a typical competency architecture, how does it look like? First, it will have something called what I said, a basic competency architecture will look like this. It will have what I just explained to you, the foundation or the bedrock, what I called it as core competencies or generic competencies. From where are they derived? From my value discipline. From my, what are the kind of values I have? Or what is that I really, wanting to drive, or what is the customer value proposition I want to give. So these will become your core competencies. Okay, just stay with it. I will give you more detail. First, I'll just give you the name. So these are the basic core competencies which will be cutting across all levels of the organization. All the employees should be having, all the positions should be having the core competencies. Next, what we call as functional competencies or job family. Job family is nothing but a function. Job families are what? HR job family, finance job family, production job family. So you can also call it like a function. Got it? So job family is nothing but a function. So they can be called as occupational competencies, job family competencies, etc. Now, the third set is called leadership competencies, which are actually more of the behavioral competencies which are required by certain positions. So typically, when you are actually designing, an architect designing your house, just like that, when you are wanting to design a competency framework, you have to understand the competency architecture. Okay, so an architecture will look like this. So when we talk about all these three kinds of competencies, I've also put some kind of, what are your core competencies? Should I put it on another, this one? Are you able to see, or should I put it on? This is better?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the core competencies? If you have seen the diagram, they form your foundation. And how is this foundation created? This foundation is created by the customer value proposition you are actually giving. I mean, what is that you promise to your customer? Because based on that is your product and service delivery. Okay. Now, so it could be like what? It could be a simple thing like a client focus, like in a consulting company. What do you think could be one of the core competencies? Or a generic competency? What could be in a consulting company like where I had come from, EY or a Morse or a Hewitt? What would be one of the core competencies which should cut across all employees should have? Think about it. Quick.
Client
Client service.
Absolutely. Client is God here. Everybody, you can't say, no, I am in the support. Everybody has to be client focused, right? Very important. Okay. Now, say for example, in a manufacturing organization or auto sector, what would be one of the core competency, or what would be?
Quality.
Actually,
Quality.
It's quality. It will be
Quality
like, you know,
product
value
focus.
engineering somewhere. Or maybe if I am making, what is that, Porsche or high-end cars, design will become very, very critical, right? Everybody has to be aligned with that design. So you need to understand, hey, across the organization, Google, creativity, innovation, right? So you have to understand, because I'm product leadership company. So what is the key competency which everybody should have? Are you with me now on the same page, guys? So somewhere again, like for example, you know, all these companies like where in the gig economy, especially like Amazon, etc., you have a lot of collaborative work. Everything is around teamwork, right? So teamwork gives, like today you are also looking at collaboration quotient. So teamwork becomes very, very important. Or for some organization, stakeholder management. Got it? So are you with me, guys? How you derive your core values for your own organization when you go back? Okay, they are derived from your customer value proposition. You have to look at your values. What is your company actually believing in? What kind of a philosophy? Because the philosophy gets translated into customer value proposition. Then, got it? Integrity also could be one.
Ma'am, so I have a question.
Update.
Yeah, Vanessa, go ahead.
Minal, yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. That core competencies you are saying it cuts across all organizations. Similarly, I have a question that in a function, for example, I'm doing competency mapping for a particular function, okay, like a production or an HR. Would that function also have some specific core competencies which will run across all the levels? You know?
So now we are coming to first, just stay there. Minal, I'm coming to that now. Just stay there. So first is, I'm talking about core competencies. Next is, I'm talking about job family or functional competencies. Every function, the coverage is now you are only looking at functional competencies. HR function, finance function, production function. Okay. Now coming to that, now Minal asked me one question. So within the HR function or within the finance function, there will be a competency which is specific to that competency cluster, which will be specific to that competency cluster, but may not be required in the same intensity or proficiency level, right from lower to the top. Are you with me? Huh? There might be one competency or two competencies which are required across the same function, but not in the same intensity or proficiency level. Got it? Very clear? Yes. So now, what are those jobs? They could be occupational, they could be functional. Like say, for example, you know, in a data management thing, data literacy could be one competency, or project management, partnering. Yeah? So these are various occupational, functional competence. Next coming. So you can also have technical or professional competencies. Like for example, some of the finance, it is accounting, right? In the analytics vertical, you will have a lot of business analysis, etc. Okay. So these are some of the technical or professional competencies. Now,
these would be not a job family altogether. Wouldn't these be specific to a JD altogether?
Where,
a specific role.
Pardon?
Please go to the next slide. Yeah, this one only. Yeah, right. No, the previous one. Yeah, accounting, reporting, human resource management. All of this would be specific to, I think, a specific like accounting and reporting,
professional, or functional
role altogether.
They are all these competencies which are required at broad level. You are looking at a certain technical or certain function or professional competencies.
Yeah, I do get that. My point here is this, like say for example, human resource management, that's too broad, even a competency to define what are we trying to say for it.
So
right?
Further down, you will break it down into further more competencies. This is just a broad overview to get you to an understanding as to what could be the professional competencies. Okay.
Many a times it is senior, if I may, Meenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so my point here is that sometimes there's too many competencies that end up being in an organization, which is also confusing. So when you are giving or talking about technical competencies, wouldn't it be right that you pick up the top 2-3 across the function that cuts across the function, not the organization, right? And then actually make it into a functional competency, rather than broadly defining first what is enlisted maybe the kind right now in front of us, and then probably further drill it down.
So to give you an understanding, this is an overview of a laundry list of competencies. But typically when you come down to making a competency mapping and a competency profile, every role should not have more than 6 to 8 competencies. Okay. Every role, this is just giving you an understanding of a list of competencies just for your awareness. But when you do competency mapping on the ground, when you come to that, every role should not have more than 6 to 8 competencies. Because
including behavioral competencies, ma'am, behavioral competencies.
Now you will look at them. See, when we're just coming to the next slide. How do we do that? For example, I've just done some little bit. Say, for example, there is a project assistant. Okay. He will have some core competencies. He may have some job family competencies, and he can also have some specific competencies. Now, you may say that some of the competencies are overlapping with the project manager, because project assistant and project manager are the same, what is that called, job family of project management. Okay. When you are talking about a same family of project management, now, like for example, you will see that the quality focus is here as well. And also you let me take a client focus. The client focus is required for project assistant also, but also for the project manager. But the proficiency level, which we call it as, when we talk further down, when we do a competency mapping, that is writing the proficiency levels of the behaviors required. The level 1 is fairly at a initial level, and level 4 is at a very advanced level. That means the intensity or the behaviors anchored at level 1 are much lesser than the behaviors which are anchored at a level 4. Yes, Prachi, are you now getting me that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, madam, one thing I just...
So when we are talking about a particular role, so the initial slides were showing you a list of competencies. But when we do competency mapping for an organization, core competencies could be at best 1 or 2. Functional competencies could be at best 2 or 3. Level specific, and then you are coming down to job specific or role specific. So in total, they will comprise of 6 to 8 competencies.
So,
Okay.
madam, actually, here I want to say one thing, that suppose in the in the field of the HR as well, the people, those who are the having the HR generalist profile, like myself, and
Right.
the people, those who are associated directly with the L&D type of job, or maybe the compensation. In these cases, the core competencies and the job specific competencies are, and also job family competencies are also to some extent different.
It will be like an 80-20 principle. I will just show you another slide. Yeah. Now, when we are looking at competencies, when you are at an entry level, it is more of a skill, knowledge and skill, and less of, so at best you may need a team working skills or etc. But as you keep growing into your job with from here to here, the complexity of job grows higher and higher. What happens? The behavioral competencies, like for example, at a middle level or a top level, the need for strategic thinking, or the need for what? Leadership, which is more in terms of behavioral competencies, that becomes much more. So when I said the competency are the characteristics, underlying characteristics, which comprise of knowledge, skill, all these three, all the 5 things. Here, which is higher at an entry level, you are only testing for knowledge and skill, and at best you are looking at, hey, does this person have some kind of a trait which is required across the organization, something like that. But as you go further and further, maybe you are not looking at much of a skill, you are looking at more of the traits, more of the motives, more of a self-image, etc. Okay, so more into behavioral kind of a competence. So therefore, I think Prachi was asking one question. What was that question? Saying that when I'm actually coming down to listing competencies for a particular role, the competencies for a particular role definitely will depend on the brief or the job description. Okay, the role and the responsibilities of that job, which can be broken down into several tasks and activities, and what are the competencies required to execute those tasks. Okay, so when your brief is fairly simple, just sticking to knowledge and skill, the competencies will be more closer to knowledge and skill. But when your brief is much more complex and which involves a lot of strategy, implementation, etc., then your competencies will become much more complex in nature. Are you with me, guys?
Ma'am, I have one question.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's relevant at this point of time.
This is Monisha, right?
Yes, it's Monisha.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, for example, if we launch competency, this thing in phase wise, in the phase one, first we find out what are the core competencies needed. I'm just referring that, जो आपने एक house जैसा structure which you showed. So in phase one, we do core competencies, and after some time, we do phase two, where we find out technical competencies, or it should be that we should launch everything together.
So when you do competency mapping, there is a process, okay? So you do everything together.
Okay, got it.
You were not going to first attack this. So for your own understanding, we were trying to make you understand that what are the various kinds of competencies existing. But when you do competency mapping, which is a process, then you will do everything together, and we will actually look at all the processes in the second session 2. Okay? Also giving you an example where you will do a role set based competency mapping, where you will, so typically, just to give you from a consultant's point of view, what we do typically, we bring the entire people who are working in that function. Okay. And then what we say is all the positions are there. They start writing their job descriptions, right? And then we ask them to write down, 80-20 principle, in the sense, what are the things which are required, to do your job in terms of knowledge, skill, etc. Then we collate all the data, right? And then we also have the the general manager there of that production department, or everybody. So at one point of time itself, we will identify, map what is required for the function, what is required for the levels, because there may be a general manager, there may be a senior manager. Say for example, HR department, I'll bring the entire HR head, vice president, senior manager, HR manager, and also the other people. Okay. And then we will start mapping, because that is the best way. It might take iterations, but takes in the least time you are able to map the competencies. But the long method of McClelland takes a longer time, where you are actually using, of course, to validate, you are doing some kind of a criterion sampling of taking superior performers and poor performers. But to save your time, you do it at one go. So you guys, when you have to do it for your organization, I will definitely teach you a very quick and highly effective process, where you can do it at a least time. Okay.
And one question over here, Vanessa here. So as an HR professional, okay, or as an L&D professional, I may choose that certain competencies are required at certain level. And like you showed, map it to level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Of course, that has to be discussed with the opposite person as well, right? So if I'm doing a competency mapping, say of the finance department people also should agree to that competency that I have mapped. What if there is a difference in opinion in that? So how does that sort? Because what I am looking at is from an HR perspective and from an organization perspective, but the finance person is looking at it from a finance perspective. So there
Absolutely.
could be a difference in opinion.
So what we call this methodology as role set. Okay. We call it as role set competency based competency mapping, where you are actually, every role has certain stakeholders. At a lower level, you may not have. So there are stakeholders. What does it mean? That, recipient of your services. So they could be a finance guy, they could be a marketing guy, they could be a production guy. So first of all, then you look at the role set. You will give a questionnaire saying that who are your role set members. So similarly, you are also giving a sheet to all those key role set members. Like for example, an HR head, I'm wanting to do competency mapping for an HR head. A key stakeholder would be what? Managing director or a CEO. Key stakeholders would be all the business heads of different verticals. There could also be a key external stakeholder as well. Okay, so I will have to first of all incorporate all that data and say, hey, what is that you are expecting from him? Because competency is nothing but delivering what, or doing the work or affecting performance based on what is required. Got it?
Sure. Thanks.
Gopa, I'm not getting the comfort by the way you look. Is it confusing?
So, ma'am, what you're So, ma'am, what you're trying to say is that finally my competencies will not only be mapped or based on my understanding of the role, but also my stakeholders who are going to receive services from me
because
are going to validate that these competencies are the right set of competencies.
Recipient of services, key stakeholders. For example, my HR role, head role is described, or it depends on my understanding of that role, and also depending on my key stakeholders. Otherwise, I can't have a role in isolation. No?
Ma'am, I have a question. Me origin.
Yeah.
Ma'am, over here, what I got is yes, technically speaking, we are designing this competency framework. Now, followed by conceptualization of a competency framework, what follows is the performance appraisal model, which the organization adapts. Now, I have a question as to strategically, there are various models, either of which the organization head.
Little louder, Arjit. I'm actually missing out some of the parts here.
Am I audible now? Is it
now
better?
you are audible? Yeah.
Okay. Ma'am, my question is, yes, we are going into technicalities of designing the competency framework. Now, followed by it, we try to get it implemented through a performance appraisal process. Now, generally, out of the various models which are present, the organization hierarchy chooses a particular model for performance appraisal. Now, what would be your call in the interrelationship between having a competency framework, then get it implemented by a performance model which the organization adapts?
Yeah.
Because
so
what I mean to say,
I got your point, Arjit. What you're saying is, hey, how are we going to do? We are wanting to performance management, right? So in session 2, we would take you through, you have to first of all do competency mapping for all your roles, right? Across the organization.
Right.
If you're wanting to get into a competency based, either it is training or a competency based performance management, first of all, you have to create that competency framework for all your roles existing in the organization. Because unless and until you create the competencies, because as I said earlier, because if the presence or the absence of the competency will cause superior performance, right? So first of all, I have to understand what are those competencies which are causing superior performance in my roles. Then I will see, hey, then I will start saying, looking at, I told you, the employees or the individuals who are working in those specific roles, then I will start assessing, or when I'm creating a performance management, I'll say, hey, this is what are the competencies. These are, so when you say competencies, you have to measure them. So you will write those behavioral descriptors. So this is what you are supposed to do, but this is how you did. So therefore, this is the gap. Are you getting me? So ultimately, you have to do competence. Now, just
it is
point. Yeah, but just give one more point. So for every role, there will be something called, functional competencies. There will be behavioral competencies. So the way we do competency mapping is for functional competencies, which is primarily knowledge and skill. You do something called job element analysis. Out of the job element analysis, you are able to then come to what is the knowledge required, what is the skill required, okay? Because you will break down the job into various elements, and for every element, you will look at what is the knowledge and skill required. And once you have done job element analysis, then you will look at, hey, what are some of the 1 or 2 key competences which are required for this role, okay? But all this we will do in the next session when we are talking about it. I'm sure I don't want you all to take in, because you won't be able to then, let's do a little more of what is this understanding about. See, as I said, for you can use your competencies once you have defined or you have established the competency framework for your organization across all roles, function, departments, etc. You can use it for what? Right from recruitment and selection, for induction, for performance management, for training and development, for promotions, as you know, and for compensation and benefits as well. Okay, like for example, when you do promotions, etc., you're also doing assessment centers, development centers. How you measure performance, how you measure competencies, because you are measuring competencies through those behavioral indicators by doing assessment centers. That means assessing people whether they have those competencies, or assessing people for even your training and development to understand what is the kind of gaps they have. So competencies become your nucleus or their DNA for creating. But if you don't create the competency framework in the first place, then you can't use it for your HR functions. Then this becomes your standard. Then it doesn't say that for recruitment selection, I will use something else. For performance management, for the same role, I will use something else. For training and development, I'll use something else. No, because what happens once you create your competency framework for all your roles, because then you have those proficiency levels. So then you can bring that person, if you want to do training and development, hey, he is at level 1. Now I have to increase his proficiency. I'll give him training. Or performance match. So you will have standards will be the same. Okay. So that there is no deviation in, whether you are selecting for that role or whether you are promoting a person for a same role from a level, from a role which is lower than that. Are you with me? Are you? I mean, I was just wanting to, yeah, close that circle so that I could complete that. Yeah, tell me, Arif. Did I respond to your question? Were you able to?
Yes, ma'am.
Align
I
with
was able to get your point. But what I wanted to stress on was, like, suppose previously we adapted bell curve kind of uh, appraisal method, wherein the even the top tier, say the 100 people working over there, out of them there would be someone who would be heading the lot, and there would be someone who would be falling at the back of it. This is means what I wanted to stress on. Means I have the competency. I know those 100 people are having the competency. They are the best of the lot. But still, based on my performance appraisal method, I have to segregate.
So clearly, organizations are moving away from the bell curve.
Yes, they are.
Most of the organizations are moving away from bell curve because they don't motivate the person to perform. Okay, right. Because if you are trying to hardwire and fix a bell curve, because bell curve means what? You are fixing percentages of your rating scale of who can be in 5 and who can be in 4. So literally you are trying to force fit people into that curve, right? So what happens to these performers who have performed well? Just because the departmental head has to force fit into that bell curve, probably a person who is rated as 4 has to be pulled down to a 3, because you have to give room for someone else there. All right. So what happens is demotivated. So the underlying philosophy of performance management is to motivate and do better work. So a lot of people are moving away. So that, yeah. So right now I don't want to mix everything into one. Okay. But definitely I will speak on it and then link it up with what are organizations doing today, alternatively in the place of performance, bell curve. Because like say, for example, a Google or a Microsoft, if I say a bell curve, I'm taking the best of the lot. I'm putting all my, recruitment selection. I'm doing 8 rounds, 9 rounds, spending so much of effort, taking the best person. And then when it comes to performance management, if I say I'm going to put you in a bell curve, you think that person will be motivated? Yeah, you are a best person in a coder, so you cannot even you cannot deliver product and service unless you are the best person. And then when you are rated, so it is conflicting with the philosophy of the organization. Okay, so we'll definitely talk about it and link it up with the competencies as well. Okay. Okay. Well, guys, I will just quickly show you what is a competency dictionary. Okay. Now, when I say what is a competency dictionary, a sample is like this. I'll just show you a sample first of all. How does a competency dictionary look like? What is a competency dictionary is, it's something I have defined competency frameworks. I have done the competency mapping. So what does that mean? That I've listed down all the competencies for role, function, department, etc. for this entire organization, which is contextual. Now, this is something like a dictionary. You know what is a dictionary used for? There is a name, you want to see a meaning. So it's a glossary where it gives you a good understanding of the list of competencies, all right? And what is the kind of a proficiency level required. And it also gives you the understanding of what is the kind of a behavior which we call as bars. Behavior indicators, which we call as bars, and we put them in different levels of proficiency. Okay, so this dictionary is a common reference point. So all of you, when you finish your competency mapping, everything, you have to create a manual. This is like, you know, like the HR wants you to understand. It gives you a common understanding so that everybody is on the same page of understanding. Of, say, for example, if I say creativity and innovation, you know exactly for creativity and innovation for a R&D person, or for a, you know, person in the HR, or for a person in the finance are different. So therefore, how do you what is the common understanding you get? So everything is written in detail, because the intensity and the proficiency level required for a competency like a creativity and innovation for an R&D person may be different, for a finance person may be different. Okay, so in the competency dictionary, everything is written in detail, competency by competency, saying that, say for example, this is the competency for communication. At an entry level, what is it? At a mid level, what is it? At a senior level, what is it? And when you do a competency framework, and you know, for a level production manager, communication, you have identified through your mapping process that he has to be here at a mid level. Okay, so there is a common understanding. Got it? So it is like a glossary of the list of competencies with your proficiency level, etc. But when you are writing this dictionary, we will also give you a more understanding how it has to be in a particular, you know, rater scale, which is called, you know, proficiency level. Some of your OD consultants would understand. And then it has to be observable, it has to be measured. So these are few things which, as we go on, as we write those competency mapping for different roles, where you will actually do here for a particular role, then you will understand how to go about with those things.
So, ma'am,
Okay,
I have a
guys?
question. Ma'am,
Yeah.
one last question. So, these are behavioral competency, for example, but when it comes to technical competencies, will we get any support to understand what comes at
We will
entry
do
level,
that.
mid
I
level?
told you, I just told you, Minal. For example, I told you that when we talk about technical competencies, which is more of knowledge and skill, we do something called a job element analysis. Okay. When we do a job element analysis, say for example, simple, yeah, we will do that actually in the exhaustively in the next session, so that, you know, it's because of the time. I don't because this was just an introduction. So as I understand, everybody now is some kind of a magic box. We are wondering, hey, say for example, for a HR recruiter, simple, right? How do I define HR recruiters competencies? Okay, so for your good understanding, in the next session we are actually going to get a job description of recruiters. Okay, then I will make you write, help you, first giving you the process, how do you write the technical, because recruiter also has those technical competencies or the functional competencies, and then how do you write the behavioral competencies. So you will actually go through that process, then you will understand, hey, for a role, this is how I'm going to write the competencies. Okay, having said that, you have some homework, guys, 3 or 4 things to do. Okay, and you have a long time. It's quick, it will only give you an understanding. So all these homeworks and quizzes I'm going to ask Vilma. I'm sure she has already sent them to you, so please do them, because it will give you a good understanding of the competencies. All right, before we actually, then, you know, you'll be familiar with the competencies. Like for example, marketing manager, what competency will he need? Or say for example, a purchase manager, what will be a key competency? Okay, so there are a lot of things. It's like a quiz, easy to do them, but at the same time it's going to help you a lot.
So that will be posted subsequently
Ma'am,
in the group or in through mail.
Vilma is going to send it to you individually, or she
Oh.
must have already sent it to you individually. But here is my again. You can always text if you have a challenge in doing them or some clarification required. You don't have to wait till next session. Okay.
ma'am, we had received the mail, but there is no attachment.
Okay. So I will just tell Vilma.
It's mentioned as quiz.
We have received a quiz. Is that the only one as an assignment that we need to do?
There's no attachment in there.
All right.
No
So
attachment.
here is it, guys. So there are 3 or 4 assignments, quick and short ones. So maybe after the close of the session, we'll ensure that all the participants have it in their inbox. Got it?
Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
So I hope it just gave you like a tip of the iceberg, a little understanding about, but I also, through your questions, I got an insight into what are some of your challenging areas, what are those things which you really need to understand, etc. So where is Prachi? Prachi, are you there?
Yes, absolutely, I'm there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you had asked me a couple of questions. So, did you get certain kind of responses? Were you comfortable with them, or you needed some more clarification? If yes, please text me. Okay, don't hesitate, and we will actually, as a group, then share our understanding, and you can learn much more. Okay,
Sure,
guys.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, guys.
Very much got clarity. I'm looking forward to actually doing it hands-on in the coming sessions.
Yeah,
Pretty much
that's
reiterated the kind of knowledge I had, so it just reiterated pretty well.
Yeah.
And
There may be some unlearning also,
Yeah.
because if your cup is already full, it has to actually,
need
it has to get empty as well, right?
Absolutely.
All right, guys. So wonderful having you all, and have a nice weekend. I don't know, whatever the weekend is, few hours left, and see you all next Sunday, same time. Okay, great, guys. Take care. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
so very
you,
much.
ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.